India will not win an edition of the Border Gavaskar Trophy for the first time in a decade. It is Australia who will go to Sydney with an unassailable 2-1 lead after winning by 184 runs in Melbourne. Welcome to ESPNcricinfo Match Day with Sanjay Manjrekar. Thank you, Sanjay, for your time. A riveting test match to end a fascinating year of test cricket. But surely it's going to pinch India that they crumbled the way they did on a surface that didn't crumble the way you could have expected.
Yes, and they would also go into the next test match feeling that bowling needs a little more potency, but the batting will hurt them because they had some stalwarts, on paper. We talked about Rishabh Pant being, a danger man, and to get all out, and in the end, the margin of defeat was huge. And just the way they went about batting in that final innings, too slow in the second session, and then trying to perhaps make up in the last session, wonder whether that's the reason Pant got out. So not quite the end that will lift your mood.
Yeah, so many moving pieces, which we'll come to. But if you take a macro view of this test match, there are a few moments and mistakes that stand out. Jaiswal's run out to trigger that collapse on day 2, letting slip from having Australia at 91 for 6 on day 4, and then the collapse post-T. All of this is the difference of a test which was possibly drawable, if not winnable.
That run out of Jaiswal, I guess, hurt India a little more than the others that you mentioned. One is a set batter like Jaiswal got out, because had he got his 100, he gets big ones. And Virat Kohli was looking good, and then he got out as well. So it was, they were sort of derailed right at the start. Thankfully, we had Nitish Reddy playing that kind of an innings. But the other two are associated with, inherent limitations of the Indian team and vis-a-vis the bowling. And that's why twice we've seen recoveries from batters down the order. Why wasn't India able to recover on the final day after losing, 3-4 wickets? Australia were relentless because they just have better overall quality in their bowling attack.
Okay, so that does take me where I want to go. That gulf of bowling quality. Yes, India have won Bumrah, but for Australia, the relentlessness of that attack, that's the biggest differentiator. Because you look at the last day, when it came to after tea, Australia with a 50-over ball took 7 for 43 in 25 overs. India, after having Australia 6 down in 36 overs, struggled on day 4.
Yeah, because there is a huge difference between Bumrah and the rest. Siraj, despite him being around and he's a fine bowler, but there's still a big distance between Siraj and Bumrah. Plus, when you look at Mitchell Starc and Siraj, Akash and Scott Boland, overall the seam attack is looking a lot better. Nathan Lyon as a spinner is in these conditions better than Washington and Jadeja. So India will go into the final test match knowing that their bowling attack is not adequate. For the first time, I thought of Kuldeep Yadav. If he was in that team, the tail would not have maybe wagged as much because these kind of bowlers are excellent at finishing the innings. So that is the issue. But what will give India hope is the Australian batting that still continues to, not convince you.
The internet loves to keep coming back to calls that don't work out. But what about calls that are right but not remembered? Before this test match, the exact fears that you had were that India might be going in with a composition which compromises the balance.
And that happened. Again, see, you've lost the test match. You tried to, address the batting uncertainties by getting a bowler who can bat. Nitish Reddy in the side at the expense of Shubman Gill or maybe Washi. So they left out a proper batter. And in hindsight, you would think, on a pitch like this, the flattest pitch on all 5 days so far in the series, Shubman Gill would have been handy. Nitish Reddy did well, and thankfully, that help matters. But it's an approach that never works, where Washington Sundar in the end was playing as a batter, and he's never going to be as good as a top order batter like a Shubman Gill. So a lesson learned. You just feel insecure and you think this will solve the problem. It never does. With specialists, you have hope. But now we have a specialist batter, I guess. So that was one good outcome from that test.
Yes, it has to be one of the big storylines for India, one of the big positives, Nitish Reddy. And of course, there was that ever-present, constant genius called Bumrah. As far as the final day goes, there were moving parts to it. But there's one moment that becomes more highlighted in the television age we live in. Yashasvi Jaiswal's dismissal sparked a fair amount of debate. Your stance on it?
First of all, the TV umpire Saikat is a new addition to the elite panel, and there are some umpires who are very good on the field, not so great as TV umpires. So you can see that there was a bit of inexperience. An experienced umpire would have taken the call of, you know what, Snicko, Ultra Edge have been reliable technology over the years, and yes, visually I see there's something happening there, and he would have said, no, but I trust this technology and I'm going with that tool as my final sort of confirmation that either it was edge or not edge. There was no movement. So an umpire who has done more of TV umpiring would think like that. But how can you fault Saikat for what he did? Because he saw ultra edge, nothing happened, but visually, you know, he was convinced in his mind. If you listen to the conversation, he's convinced that the ball has gone past the gloves and suddenly it's turned towards his left. Forget about who the batter is, which side you're supporting. Just look at what happened. It turns a little to the left and then dies on the keeper. That's an indication of some kind of contact with something. And he, in this case, found that the visual evidence, which is also technology in a way, was more compelling than the ultra edge or the Snicko not helping him.
And that becomes an important point for the average viewer, right? That you tend to think that when you see a Snicko or the ball tracker, that is technology, but the visual cue, which is a slow mode replay, is also part of technology, and the third umpire so is well within his or her right to go by that to make an informed decision.
So basically what happens is the review, the decision has been challenged. So the umpire feels that he's not out. It goes upstairs and then the TV umpire gets all these tools to make a decision. He is not told, you know, which is the most important. Maybe at some stage when the technology becomes so reliable, especially the Ultra Edge and Snicko, which is very reliable, it's not as maybe sound as a hotspot or sometimes ball track. I find that technology brilliant, but the umpire is not told that if it doesn't show, if just go by what the Snicko tells you and ignore everything else, he would have done that. But he was so convinced visually, and come on, Rohit Sharma, it was so nice of him to accept, because you know that is what our fans need too, because there is a lot of, you know, emotions riding, and very often we don't quite look at the picture, but Rohit Sharma nailed it. He said, yes, maybe there was contact, and that is what Saikat thought. He saw that there was visual evidence enough for him to ignore a reliable technology.
Yeah, enough said by Sanjay Manjrekar here and Rohit Sharma there to overrule any sense of controversy. So let that die down here. What that moment did do is it overshadowed an odd choice of shot perhaps from Jaiswal, which also overshadowed what was quite a resolute effort of 200 plus balls.
I wouldn't say rash shot or, you know, lapse or whatever. It was a ball that was short and he tried to play, you know, on the leg side. I'd actually give more credit to Pat Cummins, because he realized there's nothing in the pitch, and Jaiswal was getting set, and you know they tried everything. Finally, and this is the thing to like about Pat Cummins, he's always coming up with ideas and tactics. So he forgot about getting the outside edge or leg before, and then focused on having those fielders short leg, silly point, and then the bounces come out. And may not have been the greatest delivery, but it was something different that got Jaiswal to do something different. So there again, I would give more credit to Pat Cummins than, you know, look at the controversy that was created.
Had been quite a solid effort from Jaiswal, batting in a way that perhaps doesn't naturally come to batters of this day and age.
It's actually interesting. You can't maybe say that he's naturally attacking or naturally defensive, because he can do both things in an extreme fashion. You know, he can bat for hours and not score a run, and he can have a strike rate of 160 in the first 10 balls that he faces in the IPL. So clearly a talent that India is lucky to possess. Tough conditions in Australia with the new ball, and he's got now 3 excellent scores, 1 big 100 and couple of 80s. So that's great news for India.
The manner of dismissals for a lot of India's top 5, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli, Rishabh Pant in what was quite a moment in this test, and then Jaiswal, belies a team who are looking to play out a draw?
But we knew India had these problems. And you're right, the batting is an issue. In fact, coming to Australia, I want to take everyone back to what happened before we came to Australia, lost 3-0. And a lot of people within their hearts felt, India is going to be struggling. There was no Shami, Kuldeep Yadav ruled out, Rohit Sharma, Virat Kohli out of form, Rohit Sharma not playing the first test. Despite that, we are seeing this kind of a fight and winning a test match. So that's brilliant when you look at the larger picture. But yes, Rohit Sharma's shot that he played, after playing so well, I don't think there's an excuse for that, and that has to be looked at as a mistake. That Virat Kohli keeps getting out in this fashion makes you doubt his, all-time greatness, because it's just becoming a bit too much. As for Pant, I just wonder, in that last session, because India had so many wickets in hand, whether there was some talk, and in the press conference, Rohit Sharma alluded to it, that with wickets in hand, 7 wickets, they thought they could make one, attempt with Pant out there and see if things, happen, some miraculous recovery is possible. And if that wasn't the case, they could play out for a draw. Because immediately after tea, he played a shot that he had never played in that long vigil at the crease where he was defending everything.
Could that be a realistic conversation though? Because if you look at the equation at the point Pant falls, it was something like 220 runs to win in 34 overs.
Yeah, that's why India went too slow at the beginning and left too much to do in that final session. But I think Rohit Sharma's comments in the press conference can't rule that out.
And overall, when it comes to talking mindsets of batting for draws, there's a picture from the last tour, Sydney 2021, where you bat through a 5th session with almost no runs scored. How tough is it to actually bat that way and just shelve any intent of going for runs?
You've got to have that nature, which in cricket and sport is called temperament. Hanuma Vihari had that at Sydney. Ashwin has that, we know it. And to an extent, these guys tried. But what is happening this time around that's making things even more difficult for India is this bowling attack together is coming of age, which wasn't the case on the last 2 trips. So the batting has weakened a bit. We were always going to miss somebody like a Pujara. And the bowling has just got so much better, the Australian bowling attack.
That inability to close out a draw means that India end 2024 with 6 defeats. Only once in the last 40 years have they had a calendar year where they have lost more. It is also a year that ends with the 2 legends of the batting lineup, Rohit Sharma and Virat Kohli, both averaging sub 25. And it makes it quite a weird year for them, because this is the year where they finally managed to win a World Cup together, which has been such a monkey on their collective back, and yet individually quite forgettable.
Yes, but I just want to sort of keep reminding everyone that Rohit Sharma is not quite in the league of Virat Kohli. Virat Kohli is an Indian batting great. I mean, he's got a much greater body of work. Rohit Sharma is more a white ball batting great, who's had few good tours and series as a batter, mostly home. So Rohit Sharma's problems are there for everyone to see. Now one has to just imagine whether there is any hope at all, and can we expect one final flourish in the last test. And it shouldn't be left to the individual. I really think that job is a selector's job, and he has to only think of Indian cricket and see whether there's any sense in having Rohit Sharma for the next test match. If he believes there's something left there, then they continue in the same fashion. As for Virat Kohli, there's enough evidence that you want to keep supporting him, but it's time that he not only just got runs, but get out in a different fashion to show that he has overcome that problem, which seemed like he was doing in the first inning by leaving all those balls outside the off.
Yes, 6 out of 6 dismissals in the same way, and that's just this series. There are more in the year. Yeah. It's not a good look.
No, it is not. And I've never seen somebody with the kind of performance and impact that Virat Kohli has had on Test cricket have this kind of a weakness. I don't think any other top-class batter has had this. There may have been a patch when somebody's got out repeatedly in a fashion, but this has carried on for far too long. And this series, it's actually gone and sort of reached its peak, where virtually every dismissal is in the same fashion.
In Rohit's case, perhaps at some level benefiting from being captain. You'd imagine a non-captain doesn't last as long.
And that has happened in the history of cricket, happened with Mohammad Azharuddin during our times, to an extent with Sourav Ganguly. So that is all understandable. But I again put the onus on our friend Mr. Ajit Agarkar to, how much he wants Indian cricket to be meritocratic, and see if India can go in a different direction, or staying with Rohit Sharma can actually also give India some rewards at the end of the series. That decision has to be made by Ajit Agarkar, because only on performances you can see it's obvious that there is a big problem right at the top.
So how realistic is it to imagine a scenario where India actually addressed the issue, be it in Sydney or beyond?
I don't know, what will transpire, but whatever we heard from Rohit Sharma in the press conference, I don't think we can see any likelihood of that happening. But there's one thing to learn from Australia over the years, is that they didn't care about how big the name or whatever. It was always about what's best for Australian cricket. And at some stage, I hope India reaches that kind of level of thought, where it has to be just about trying to maximize the talent that you have, allowing yourself to win as many matches as possible. And if there are some legends and icons who are coming in the way, they shouldn't let that happen.
Yeah, quite a contrast of cultures between India and Australia that way. Quite a contrast for the two captains as well, because we speak so much of Rohit Sharma, but Pat Cummins, what a test match this is for him. Vital 40s in both the innings, crucial 3-fers in both the innings, and led astutely. I heard you praising his captaincy as well on the broadcast.
Yes, and that has been a major difference between the Australian team of the last two tours that India went to Australia, where Tim Paine was captaining, and he wasn't quite making any contribution personally as an individual, as a keeper batter, plus his captaincy is nowhere close to Pat Cummins. So that has made a difference, plus as he is India's Bumrah, just the fact that there isn't much of a difference between him, not as big a gulf. His USP is to make things happen, whatever the pitch. When you see a pitch that's not ideal for seam bowling, you think of Pat Cummins. He'll make something happen. Mitchell Starc is somewhat dependent on pitches, Boland more so, but Pat Cummins is just, rising with stature as a captain and especially as a bowler.
And Cummins, quite rightly you'd agree, player of the match in this fascinating test match, which puts Australia within touching distance of both reclaiming the Border Gavaskar trophy after a decade and also of the World Test Championship final.